Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in this 10th International Scientific and Practical Conference on Current Issues of Education and Practice. I am Dr. Reynaldo Vismanos from the Philippines, a master teacher of the Department of Education, Division of Cebu City, a part-time instructor of Cebu Normal University, and the head of the editorial board of the International Researchers and Educators Organization, Incorporated. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about formulating an academic research proposal. And now, without further ado, let us start. Since the COVID-19 pandemic continues to push us researchers and create innovative and novel ways for the digitalization of the research process, we continue to navigate a significant paradigm shift in research goals and methods at a dizzying pace in such a unique time. As the pandemic calls for a more digitalization of research and its processes, how does one design a research fit for the new normal? Let me enumerate to you the content of my talk. What is research? Why is research conducted? What is research proposal? What is academic research? How to write a research proposal? And the preliminary steps in developing a research proposal. What is research? It is a process of systematic inquiry that entails the collection of data, documentation of critical information, and analysis and interpretation of that data information in accordance with suitable methodologies set by specific professional fields and academic discipline. In the Philippines, the government instituted the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. It is a package of education interventions that will respond to basic education challenges brought about by the COVID-19. However, for the Commission on Higher Education, most of the challenging time is that the production and dissemination of research. And we all know that research is being conducted. It's because we wanted to validate its hypothesis or an interpretive framework. We assemble a body of substantive knowledge and findings for sharing them in appropriate manners and to help generate questions for further inquiries. Because research plays a significant role in many different fronts, including and not limited to the development of the nation, there is an improvement in learning. And of course, in research and publication, it helps the members of the faculty learn new ideas and update knowledge, in which it turns about how it affects on how we teach as teachers. So what is research proposal? It is a document that provides the details of the proposal that studies about methodology and estimating cost, work plan, and what is an academic research proposal? It's the first step in producing a thesis or major project. Its intent is to convince the supervisor or academic committee that your topic and approach are sound so that you can gain approval to proceed with the actual research. What are the benefits of writing a research proposal? It makes it easy for the reader to understand that research intends to carry it out. It serves as a document of contract for a research project. It directs the reader about certain topic by giving an overview of the research proposal so that people understand the scope of research, its significance, as well as the proposed methodology to choose in the research method. Now, we all know that it is less difficult to compose a proposal that you could think of because a research proposal is not a mini dissertation. Before you commence writing a research proposal, you have to keep in mind that you must clarify to the reader what they can expect from the entire research. And it is also important that you also look up the research proposal example online or published research papers. And how would it provide a clear picture of all the activities that are carried out at every stage? And so there are many research designs on how we will craft a research proposal, either correlational, causal comparative, experimental, historical, survey, or action research. For us teachers, we belong to action research, especially in the field of teaching and learning. And so, before the beginning of your paper, you need to decide on how you'll plan to decide with your study. So, the preliminary steps in developing a research proposal is, of course, to identify the potential ideas because there are many different components of this. And so, if you want to ensure the problem, we should be thoroughly investigated because it constitutes a blueprint for the collection, the measurement, and interpretation of the information. And take note that research problem determines the type of design you choose and no other way around. So the fundamental of research design is to ensure that the evidence obtained enables you to effectively address the research problem logically and as unambiguously as possible. Like for example, in social research, obtaining information relevant to the research problem generally entails specifying the type of evidence needed to test the underlying assumptions of a theory, to evaluate a program or accurately describe and assess meaning related to the observable phenomenon. So with this in mind, we commonly mistake made by the researchers that they begin their investigations before they have thought critically about what information is required to address the research problem. And without attending design issues beforehand, the overall research problem will not be adequately addressed, and any conclusions drawn will run the risk being weak, unconvincing, and as a consequence, the overall validity of the study will be undermined. And choosing the ideas to explore further is that we have to review and synthesize previously published literature associated with the research problem and clearly and explicitly specify hypothesis, which is the central to the problem. And in choosing and narrowing a topic, you can do this easily by moving through the following step. Let's say that you are writing on the subject of mass media and uh, culture. And depending on the topic of your research, it is also natural to spend many days and weeks, and and in some cases, or months or years, uh, searching is no matter how great or small, the scope of research is that serious researcher needs to reserve adequate time to perform a thorough survey of published articles. So, for example, you will choose a topic in the universe, something about cultural values, and be a little more specific about your topic, for example, radio drama, and be a lot more specific about your topic, for example, attitudes and values of radio drama listeners. So if you look at the statement, you can choose there, you can spot there the term any topic, and we have also there little more specific and a little more specific. And if we keeps on repeating these three steps or more times, it gives yourself a few examples of topics to choose from. So when you have few examples, choose the topic that you feel meets your course requirements, that needs of your intended audience, and or has the most relevant source material to support it. So once you feel terrifically solid about the topic you have chosen, you are very ready to narrow down your topic. And always remember that you can go back to research at any time in writing process. Remember this one, that in formulating a research question, you may be guided with these acronyms, the FINER maps. First, it is the feasible. So being feasible means that it is within the ability of the investigator to carry out. It should be backed up by an appropriate number of subjects and methodology, as well as the time and funds to research conclusions. And one thing to be realistic about the scope and scale of the project is that one has one has to have access to people, gadgets, documents, statistics, etc. Interesting also. This is an essential that one has a real grounded interest in one's research questions, and one can explore this and back it up with academic and intellectual debate. This interest will motivate one to keep going with the research question. Novel. The question should not simply copy questions investigated by other workers, but should have a scope to be investigated. It may aim at confirming or refuting the already established findings, establishing new facts, or finding new aspects of the established facts. It should show the imagination of the researcher. Ethical. This is the foremost requirement of any research questions and is mandatory to get clearance from appropriate authorities before starting research on the question. Further, the research questions be such that minimizes the risk of harm for the participants in the research, protect their privacy, and maintain their confidentiality, and provide participants the right to withdraw from research. Next, we have relevant. The question should be academic and intellectual interest to people in the field you have chosen to study. The question preferably should arise from issues raised in the current situation, literature, or in practice. It should establish also a clear purpose for the research in relation to the chosen field. It should also be manageable. It has a similar essence as feasibility, but mainly means that the following research can be managed by the researcher. Appropriate. Research questions should be appropriate logically and scientifically for the community and institution. It has a potential value and publishable. So the study can make a significant health impact in clinical or community practices. So therefore, research should aim for significant economic impact to reduce unnecessary or excessive costs. It should be also systematic, okay? And so research is structured with specified steps to be taken in a specified sequence in accordance with a well-defined set of rules, though it does not rule out creative thinking. And the next step is developing a working thesis. Now, developing a working thesis can serve as to tell you whether further information you need to provide in the essay and help you decide on order of your ideas or what further arguments you need to support the working thesis. After a few cycles of stating, working with, and revising a working thesis, you will have created the actual thesis or central idea of your essay. And as you write, keep returning to the question that you hope your essay will answer. Don't hesitate to revise this question as your understanding of the topic develops. Because each time you do so, consider what your possible or probable answer is that of print. And this answer can be written in a sentence form and serve as a working thesis, something like a hypothesis that you are testing. Let me give you an example of a research gap. All grade 7 learners must exhibit oral and written proficiency in English, but the actual is only 55% of the grade 7 learners exhibit oral and written proficiency in English. And what is the gap? Only 44% of grade 7 learners do not exhibit oral and written proficiency in English. A second example of the gap is that all grade 10 students must have copies of learners in materials in all subjects. And the actual is no one among the grade 10 students has copies of learners' materials in all subject areas. So what is the gap? All grade 10 students do not have copies of learners' materials in all subject areas. So this is very important when crafting a research proposal in order for you to continue with your statement of the problem. Now, let me share to you the format of the action research in the Philippines setting, especially in the Department of Education. So we started with the title page, the abstract, acknowledgement, the table of contents, and we comply all the compliance checklists here. So chapter 1 comprises the following: the introduction, and the sub of which are the context and rationale, the action research question, the innovation, intervention, and strategy. For chapter 2, we have action research methods comprising sampling or the participants and or other sources of data information, data gathering methods, data analysis, and ethical considerations. So if you'll be asking about where is now the review of related literature, it is integrated in chapter 1 because research is institutionalization. And mind you that in making an action research, you are proposing first. Therefore, action research in the Philippine context starts only with chapter 1 and chapter 2. Once it is approved by the panelists or those who are masters in our division, or approved by the school division superintendent, the researcher or researchers may now continue with chapter 3. So you have already gathered data and you discuss the results and you interpret that one. And of course, you have to make an action plan. Then followed by the references and the appendices. So the appendices here, especially if it is funded by the Basic Education Research Fund, comprises the following. We have the transmittal letter, the research instruments, the application form and endorsement of immediate supervisor of the proponent, the declaration of anti-plagiarism, and we have also a declaration of absence of conflict of interest, the research proponent's profile, or what we call the curriculum vitae. Then we have an action research work plan or the timetable grant. Let me also share to you about if you wanted to continue with this, you will to certify your output with that research implemented by your principal or the school head. Then you will disseminate that one and utilize that one in part of your research report, meaning it undergoes with monitoring and evaluation. Then continue with the similarity index or use a Turnitin certification. Present also your financial report, other pictorials, which are also optional, and other relevant research documents, including the research, what we call the Gantt chart. So here I am showing to you an example of my colleagues in the service who started already with our action research, and we are now in the process of analyzing data because our proposal has been approved by the school division superintendent. The title of our research is Perspective Drawings of Senior High School Students in Housekeeping and Technical Drafting. This is a theory development approach. So I am the research leader here. And next this is from the Filipino Department, ang bagong kalakaran ng sining ng komunikasyon tungo sa mapanimdim na journal ng mga mag-aaral sa senior high school. Or in English, this is the new trend of the art of communication through reflective journal of the senior high school in our institution. And recently, we have also an action research. The proposal is already approved with our principal and public school district supervisor, titled Emerging Trends of Blended Learning, Instructional Approaches on Basic Education, Students' Academic Achievement. This is a meta-analysis and assessment and theory generation. So to conclude, your research proposal provides your reader with an overview of the information. And your research proposal helps the reader understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. And these are the suggested readings. I hope you learned something from me of this international conference. And I hope that it remains to thank you all listeners, and to thank also the organizers once again for inviting me to close this excellent conference. And I hope that you have all found it a fruitful event, so to speak. Thank you very much.